I don't think marijuana is the issue in the city. The issue is not marijuana. Now the difference is that marijuana is what I did, is what I sold in Atlanta. Here it was a different ballgame.
Yeah.
Here it was a completely different commodity. It was heroin. Yeah. It was heroin and cocaine.
Right.
Is what I was doing here. And I think for, you know, from being bipolar, being from Atlanta, you know, and being in Baltimore, they're two completely different things. The story I like to tell is that when I was here and I was dating Antonio, I used to always complain. Every time we were in a car someplace going somewhere, I'm always talking about how beat up the streets are and how dirty the streets are, and you know, and I'm cursing. I'm like, the streets are just jacked up. The streets are dirty. There's trash in the streets are ripped up. They're stealing the money. And he didn't know any different, so he used to always be like, shut up. And then he came to Atlanta with me, and we were there literally about 20 minutes, and he said, there's no trash in the streets. And I said, no. And he said, the streets aren't broken up and bumpy. And I said, no. And then it hit him why I've been saying that the whole time. And you know, you hear about, like I watch the news when I'm in Atlanta and I see the news that's here, okay? And for instance, I see the news with Freddie Gray, and I watch that and I'm looking at it, I'm going, I know exactly why they're rioting. They have, you know what I mean? I see exactly why they're rioting. And then you come to Atlanta and, you know, if a cop shoots somebody and it's unjust, they don't just fire them on the spot. You check the record, they do not play. They charge police with murders. They charge police with the death of people. And so that's the difference in watching a black city one way and a black city another way.
But I've been to Atlanta, and the black population, they have money. It's like well-to-do black people. In Baltimore, not as much. You know,
exactly.
It's more a lower income situation.
Exactly.
You know, where the money talks and everything else doesn't. So
exactly. And one of the things that I used to hear about here, which was always, you know, concerning to me, was I've never met. Okay, so these are the things that I had heard about. I don't know. I didn't experience it myself. These were just things that people would say. In Baltimore, if you have an addiction to drugs and you decide to go on on the methadone program, two things about that. One, they'll give you an apartment and a check. And two, they don't take you off the methadone. So if you want to phase off of it, they don't allow you to do that. Well, to me, that's no different than being out the street on it. You're just government drug addict at this point, as opposed to selling it from somebody like, buying it from somebody like me. To me, there was no difference there. So that was one of the things that was disheartening to me. Two, if a person is if people are trying to better themselves, and getting off of heroin and using methadone as a way to slip off of it, and you don't allow them to, then that's cockholding someone, okay? And here it's cockholding an entire community, you know what I mean, or an entire city. The other thing that I heard is that if you're bipolar, they give you a job, they give you a check and an apartment, okay? If you're illiterate, they give you a check. It's like instead of helping you, putting you into therapy to deal with whatever the issue is that made you want to go to heroin. My philosophy is, you get high or drunk for one or two reasons. You're either celebrating or you're drowning something, okay? And if you're getting high and drunk every day, then you're probably not celebrating something. So there's an issue there. And if you don't have some sort of a way, whether it be through the arts, writing, drawing, singing, rapping, creating something to channel that. And as a community, we don't really look into therapy that much. So and I'm big into therapy. I went through a lot of therapy to walk away from the things that I did to myself and things that were done to me, to get past that. So what I've seen here is that it's the government here, I don't want to say it's the government, but it is the government, but the way things run here is, you know, we'll give you something now to keep you settled so that you don't want to go for something else, something bigger. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's the way as an outsider I see it. Because, you know, like you said, in Atlanta, it's black owned, black governed, black policed, and we pump out educated black people all day long. We've got a whole university system there designed just for that. You know, whatever your gender, you know, whatever your orientation, there's an education system that looks just like you there. So it is a very, you know, large difference. But in Atlanta, yeah, if you're on drugs, you can get yourself off. You know, there's plenty of stuff out there to do it, but yeah, we're not going to give you a check for that. You know what I mean? We're not giving you a check for that. We're not, if you want to get off of drugs, and I don't even know if there is a methadone program, but if there is one, it's, when you're ready to get off of it, they're getting you off of it, and that's the way it is. It's more of a, all right, we can stabilize you, but, you know, this is a city of get it on your own, and there's really no excuse. So that's the way it is. And like, you know, the people that I grew up with, you know, what I was doing was looked down on. Nobody was like, oh yeah, that shit is cool. No, it was like, what are you doing? You know, so I was always away from my friends. I was the only one of my friends that actually did anything illegal. Everybody else, well, has jobs and, you know what I mean, does other stuff. But yeah, my people that I grew up with, and it was because of my childhood and the fact that my mother went to prison, you know, when I was still a kid, and I had to figure it out on my own. You know, all my other friends are like in the government in Atlanta, and, you know, own businesses or, yeah, in banking and all of that stuff, and then there's me.
And like, how do you, like, would you feel like you had to choose between being black or white? Because you said you're biracial.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm half Puerto Rican and half Crucian.
Oh.
So it's black and white people with accents is what it really just boils down to. And the answer to that is no. When I was a kid, I didn't know it. I heard my mother having a conversation, and that's how I found out I was mixed. Because as a mixed kid, you don't know, because it's your nature. You don't realize that your parents are different colors until somebody points it out to you. So for me, my father was in the Nation of Islam, and when I was a kid, he used, you know, it was the whole "you're black" thing. But my brother was like, okay, and for me it was a little bit different. You know, with me it was, well, how can that be? Because I look like my mother. Does that make sense? So I always fought with that, but then society told me that I am black. But I was also raised in a very militant black family. So that was also, you know, all of that was inside of me. And then finally I came to the conclusion of, one, I did a little history, and I realized that the one drop rule was a slave rule. It was designed to prevent children of slave owners from receiving freedom and inheritance. So nobody defines me according to that. I define myself. In order for someone to say that I'm black is telling me that my mother doesn't count. So I have a feeling about that. I am a biological fence straggler, is the way that I look at it. So, and in my life experience, what I found out is that what I've experienced is that when white people see me, okay, it's human nature to look for a common ground, something that makes you feel comfortable, okay? So when white people see me, the first thing that they notice is the light. And then after they get comfortable, they say, oh, skin's a little browner and the hair's a little curly, okay, once you're comfortable. When black people see me, the first thing they see is brown. And then after you get comfortable, you say, oh, their hair's a little curlier and their skin's a little lighter. So it's that balance there. When my hair's straight, you really can't tell what the hell is going on with me. But what I found is that when people, no matter what your race is or anything like that, once you get comfortable with me, the difference in us washes away. You only see you, and that's whether you're white or whether you're black, you know. And so that's the way it's worked for me throughout my life.
So, when your so-called predestinate more based on like your life, you left us and went back to Southern.
No.
What you did in that period of time.
This is, okay, so where they're going to run seamlessly together. So where the second one will pick up is exactly where Pigtown ends. And then where that one ends, the third one will pick up. So yeah, we're going to go through this whole thing of exactly what was going on. And the second one is actually a very good balance between Atlanta and Baltimore. So I've already started writing it. So because I was going back and forth during the time. So you'll see a lot more heightened things that are going on because now Antonio's out. And in the first book, you didn't get a chance to really meet him. He was like in the background and like a phantom to the whole thing. Yeah. You know, he was the reason for all of this going on. And in the second one, now it's he and I as a team. So you'll get to see more of that relationship that wasn't shown in the first one. Anything else?
The book read so much like a movie. Is that something you would be interested in pursuing?
Television. I could, out of 3 books, I already have 2 pilots, and what I want, 2 different types of pilots depending on which direction. And now what I want to do is take both the pilots and mash them up and make one other one. So by the time it's all over, it'll be 3. But I think the one that's the mixture of the 2 is the one that I would probably present. But with all 3 books, I could do 5 seasons of 1-hour programming. And I'm working with some people on that now as well.
How exciting!
We'll see.
Do you think that like whatever is produced will be a good reflection of Pigtown or the reality, or are they going to gloss it up?
That's a good question. What I would try to do, and this is my thing, I've been broke all my life. So I'm not in a rush to make wrong money, okay? This is my story. I waited over 40 years to begin to tell my story. So the reason that I didn't wait on trying to find a publishing company is because I didn't, the rule of thumb is first book is theirs, you make no money off of it. Second book is a joint project, and the third book is yours. But this is, I have a 26-year-old daughter. This is my other daughter. And then there's going to be more that come behind her. So my thing was that if I only sold 2 books and made $20, I'd be happier than going with a publishing company and, watching them get rich off of my story. I feel the same exact way about anything that has to do with this book. Yeah. If it's not my voice, the reason it took me so long to edit it is because I needed people that I could trust that would not try to change the voice, So, and I feel the same way about the television project right now, is that anybody who wants to come on, you have to understand that this is mine and that there's a certain cadence to it. And, I literally phonically write the accent, write the Baltimore accent, I write the phrasing, I do everything because it's so much, a character of the story. And, I look at, The Wire and how they had to bring people, regular, ordinary people, they had to bring them into it because there's no other place like this. You're not going to hear that accent any place else in this world. And because of that, you have to protect the book because this culture is something that you don't see everywhere, and I'm protective over it. So if it does go there and the choice was, okay, we just want to use the book and you don't have anything to do with it, then the answer is no. Because you're not going to bubblegum my story, and so many other people's stories to facilitate what it is you're trying to get across. I've been broke, I don't need the money. So if I needed it, I would have had it.
So we touched upon, you briefly mentioned gentrification, I guess, that you see happening in Pigtown.
It's happening in Atlanta too.
Oh, yeah, everywhere, every big city. Yeah. But what do you think the city as a whole, Baltimore, or namely a Pigtown, can do to, quote unquote, improve without pushing everyone out?
Education. That's all there is to it. It's the if it doesn't start with the education system, then everything else is for nothing, because you can have all the best intentions in the world, but if you don't have if you don't have children that are going to step up and stay in their city and rebuild it along with everybody else, then it doesn't make a difference if you white people can move here and they can build the schools up around them. But what are they going to do where they put the people that were here before? So, and what do their schools look like? So just shifting everybody around is not going to make a difference. I read last year over the winter that these kids went to school for weeks without heat in the winter. And it's like, that is bizarre. So how do you learn under those conditions? It goes back to, you can't tell a hungry man about God because all he hears is his stomach growling. You got children that are hungry and, don't come from the best environments, and now they come to school to learn and to get away from maybe a reality that they don't deserve, but they're born into it. And then they got to freeze to death in school and be hungry and try to learn.
And vice versa, when they had the heat wave, they had to shut the schools down because
Air
they didn't have
conditioning.
air conditioning.
Yeah. So it's like, to me, that's where everything stems. If you had a good education system in Pigtown, there would have been no room for gentrification. You shut down the slaughterhouses and the plants that were here. That's how, it came, from what I know of Pigtown, it was an upper middle class working neighborhood. And then all of the, industry was, moved out and pushed on, and they left a whole bunch of people around. So now you got idle hands. Idle hands do what? Wind up getting into trouble. And then the neighborhood changes, because it's still the same people and it's still the same families, and they were still hardworking, and now there's nothing to work, there's no place to work, so it's...
Yeah, and people, I don't say I know everything, but I know that drugs were moved into some neighborhoods to destroy the neighborhood and the culture, like upwardly mobile families. When you have the drugs pumped into your neighborhood, and it's bigger than you as a little dealer, then that's going to start to erode at the family level.
This is a sad part that I realized in Baltimore. You can get heroin and crack and can't find vegetables. It's
a go business.
You can't, my favorite line was, do y'all serve fucking salads? Does anybody have salads? Plenty of French fries. You get French fries with gravy, French fries
Salad
with
on your
cheese. You can get any kind of carbohydrate. Can't find a vegetable.
What kind of salad do you like?
Oh, I like mixed
You like-
field greens.
You like spinach?
No, I hate spinach. Spinach is just
It's her fault, it's not.
but that's what I said. And then a friend of mine from Atlanta came up here, and she knew that I used to stay here, and she calls me up and she's like, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" And I said, "What?" She said, "Do they serve vegetables here?" And I started laughing because I used to say the same. It's like you can't find vegetables. And then if you do find a salad, it's iceberg lettuce, which has no nutritional value. Sorry, I'm a restaurant person, so I know, But yeah, it has no nutritional value in it, so really what do you want it for? So it's like, like those are the things that I would notice.
So you mentioned a couple times that the children used to be out in the street, and you say that positively.
Playing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So like in Atlanta, kids get shipped everywhere. So your parents get in a car and then they take you to a destination. There is no neighborhood community of kids. You know what I mean? In that aspect. And when I was a little girl, that's what we used to do. I lived in this huge building where, we had our own playground that was like 4 city blocks, long and wide. So we had a place to, commiserate. In Atlanta, it's a different thing. Here, you see, in summertime, it'd be 20 to 30 kids all on their bikes riding through neighborhoods. And to me, I love that because that is community. All of those kids are going to grow up together. You know what I mean? And those are all positive things, no matter what their life throws at them, from that day on, they still had themselves as a community, and they still had other kids that they play with, and that's just something that I don't, once I moved to Atlanta when I was 10, we didn't really see that anymore. That was something that was in New York. So when I used to see like 20 million kids outside playing, it was like, oh yeah, this is like, this is what it's supposed to be about. Your whole, if little Johnny is outside getting in trouble, then when I was growing up, my grandmother, my grandmother's friends, everybody had a right to say, and you got in trouble. They'd give you they'd tell you, get on you about it, and then they tell your grandmother, and that's the way it was here. You know what I mean? And you had, everybody had respect for the older people, and it was just a fair sense of community. They always knew who the other one was. That such and such's kid, and they belong to such and such, and that's their grandmother, and those are all their aunts and uncles, and yeah, I just love that about it.
So, as far as your education, like how far did you go to school?
I completed the 9th grade.
But like, are you self-educated because you just sound like you went to college or something?
No, thank you. No, what it was is that, so I was, at first it was arrogance. That's the first way that it came out once I was on my own, because I didn't want everybody to know that I didn't know anything. Okay, so I came out with, I know everything, and people didn't like that. So I wound up ostracizing myself. And then I realized, all right, if I start reading and picking up on things, then I won't sound like I only have a 9th grade education. I wound up getting my GED when I was 20, I think I was. Literally stumbled into taking my GED and almost scored a perfect score. I think it was like 22 points off the perfect score. So, yeah, just reading everything and just making sure that that wasn't my downfall, and I was always, it's like for me, even when I was in school, my mother didn't, make sure that we went to school or anything like that. From the time I was in the 1st grade, education wasn't important, nothing like that. But it was something else to do, and so by the time I was in high school, I got kicked out of a school for not coming to school. But I had a 3.4 grade point average when they kicked me out, because I would only show up on test days. Those were the only days that I wanted to be there. So I'd come in, I'd take my test, go eat lunch. If I had another test, I'd go in, peek in, see some teachers, and then I'd bounce. Tests were always the same days. It was Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. So those are the days that I went to school. And then they kicked me out for being truant. Okay. And it was funny because I remember when he was giving me, when the vice principal was giving me the speech, and he was here, and the window is here, and my house was not too far away, and I'm looking in the direction of my house, and I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if the police are going to kick in the door today. And those are the things but these people didn't have any clue about what was going on in my life. All they knew is I just, did show up to school, and they didn't understand why, especially with the grades that I was getting. And then the same year, we took the standardized testing, and I scored in the 95 percentile of the state of Georgia for creative writing. And the counselor, I get called into, I was in school that day, and they called me to the office, and she's telling me, she's not explaining anything to me. She's talking about the testing, and I'm like, okay. And I think I was like 16. And she says, you scored in the 95 percentile. And I said, okay. And she says, do you know what that means? And I said, you just told me it's the 95 percentile. She said, you're in the top 5% of people in the entire state. Okay. And I'm looking at her like, if she would have said to me, this can get you into college, it would have been a completely different conversation. But she's looking at me like I'm stupid. Mm-hmm. Like, how do you not understand this? But she doesn't realize that I have so many real world problems in my 16-year-old brain that what she's telling me doesn't compute to me. All I know is, if I go home today, police might be in the house. If I go to lay down tonight to go to sleep, there's a good likelihood that before I wake up, the police will kick in the door. That's how I'll wake up. And that's the way that I lived. So she did, and I think about that day so many times because that could have been my out. You know, had someone said, yeah, this writing thing you're doing, yeah, this can get you out. Because, like I said, when I was a kid, that is what I wanted to do. But that had been buried so deep down, you know, by the time I was 10 years old, that was just gone. It was just gone. And I always had diaries and wrote short stories. One of the things I used to do when I was in high school, I was in the 8th grade, I used to write love notes from one janky teacher to the other. So it would be like a love note from like the disabled vice principal that was like really nerdy and, you know, square, and the very masculine female gym teacher. And it would be a love note from him to her, and then I would fold it up and just throw it on the ground, throw it on the floor in the school, because, you know, if you see somebody's note, you're going to pick it up and scoop it, and then it would be a love note, and it was obvious that it wasn't really from them. But those are the things that I used to do, and I used to always write short stories and poetry. And my older brother, when he was in the military, he would call me up, and he would say things like, he'd give me an abstract sentence, right? And then when he'd give me an abstract sentence, then the challenge was for me to write a poem to him. And, you know, so those were like the little mind games, you know, and little things. And I used to have like duffel bags of things that I wrote, and over the years I've just lost all of it.
So do you feel like your brother escaped what you went through because he joined the military?
My brother, okay, so my oldest brother, he thinks that because we had our first 3 years of life were so drastically different, that that's where he and I separate. His relationship with our parents was a lot different than mine was, especially with our mother. My mother's whole thing is, you know, she got a boy, and, you know, he's her favorite, and it was always that way. And it was always her pitting him and me against each other. So it was a completely different dynamic. My brother asked me to go into the military with him, but I wouldn't do it because I didn't want to get up early in the morning. And that was my reason. And then years later, I was like, damn, I really messed up not doing it. I should have done it because it was a different avenue from where I went. He went into the military, and I went to live on a train in New York. I went to ride the trains and sleep on the trains in New York. So it was completely two different realities. And then I got so wild in New York that my family got me drunk on my 21st birthday, really drunk, and then put me on a train to South Carolina, where I passed out on the train and didn't wake up for 20 hours, and people thought I was dead. So that was their way of saying, all right, it's a little bit too dangerous for you here, and then they shipped me off to be with go help my brother with his babies and his wife, go help my family out with their kids. So, and yeah, it just calmed me down for about 30, 40 minutes, and that was it. I was just, because I didn't know, there's a difference between surviving and existing, and I was so, between living and existing. And I was so used to existing that it wasn't until I was in my 40s that it was, okay, now it's time to live. And a lot of therapy. I can't say that enough. A lot of therapy. You got a question? Is this better? Can you hear me?
I think you turned it off.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Huh? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Could you hear me before?
So, how did you go into write that book? And your mom.
Okay, mother threatened to sue me.
I know that's right.
She threatened to sue me, but she threatened to sue me, and my response to her was, there's a lot of Carmens in the world. If you want to call yourself out, feel free. But she also thought that it was about my childhood. So she feels a way about me writing about that. So we had to talk about that, and I let her know, you know, yeah, I'm not interested in writing about that. My daughter actually just finished reading the book a few weeks weeks ago. It took her a minute to read it strictly because she doesn't know me in that light. So she went through it, and she finally got to the point where she could separate the character from me. And then, after she was able to do that, and she went through the book, she actually enjoyed the book. She thought it was a good story.
Because I know you was listening to my mind. Never brought her here.
No, I didn't bring her until the summer.
Right.
Yeah, after he came home, that's when she was able to come up.
Have
But,
her so, chill.
Yeah.
And everything. So for her to read this book that she's grown, that's gonna be amazing.
yeah, I'll give you a number, she can talk to you about it. But yeah, she had, and there was a reason. So with my daughter, she lived with her father. And her father was in the military, and she was with him and his wife. And that was partly, it was selfish reasons on my behalf, because I knew, and my biggest fear was, if I had her, I'd fuck her up. You know what I mean? Because of what my life was, because I didn't know, I didn't know anything else, and I didn't want to take that chance of doing to her what was done to me. So that's why she was separated. And then when she was older, I wanted her to meet everybody, because everybody here was great people. And it was like, no, I want you to meet, these are the people that I want you to meet. And she came up here, she had a ball, and she still has friends from here from that summer. And you know what I mean? And she still keeps up with people, and it's like, it is what it is. And we had, so for her, it was, oh wow, that's what you were doing. You know what I mean? She was like, that's what, okay.